All right. So closing the deal. So we've gone through the process call. We've made the offer. They've verbally accepted. The deal is not done yet. So now we have to lock it up. We have to get the signature, walk through the agreement with confidence, and hand it off to our transaction coordinator. So concept. Why most reps lose deals. Yep. Is that the first one? Yep. Why most reps lose deals that should have closed. So the moment you're in, they verbally accepted, like I said, the hard work is mostly done. I don't want to say it's done. You've gone through motivation, you've handled the objections, the numbers work. Um, so now we're not selling anymore, kind of, right? We're guiding them to the finish line. So our tone, our confidence, clarity through the agreement is what closes or kills this deal. So we'll work on this, but basically, we set aside the funds, or we tell them we set aside the funds or we set aside the funds once we agree on a price. So that's why we need to get the agreements in place to lock it in. So it's not a tactic. It's a real policy. So they need to either sign today or let us know that they're not ready to sign, and then we'll just not move forward with the agreement. But this should have been done before they accepted. So sometimes they'll come up with objections saying that, I want this person to review it, whatever it may be. We'll cover that though. Obviously, at this point, they like you, they trust you, they want to do business with you since they verbally accepted. So what we want to provide for them is confidence to seal the contract or get the contract signed, confidence to walk them through the agreement. So there's a number of things that could go sideways here, right? We could sound unsure walking through the agreement, which is going to make them nervous, right? So we want to make sure we have a great grasp on the agreement, what we're asking them to sign, and we can basically explain it to them in layman's terms and not complicate things for them, because a complicated mind isn't going to make a decision. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to read the contract word for word. We just want to explain it at a high level. We want to be able to address the 24-hour policy with confidence. We want to understand who the influencers are or attorneys and have a plan to get the contract signed. We don't want to get off the phone without a signature, and we want to push back on them getting off the phone, and we can walk through and drill on how to practice that. And then we want to be able to bridge this to our transaction coordinator as well. So the closing sequence is going to look like this. So we lock in the verbal. They say, we say, hey, if we come back at 200, you'll agree, right? They say yes. We come back, they agree, all good. Basically, what we tell them, and I only say this when they ask how much time. So I say, hey, when we put together an offer, we set aside the funds specifically for your property, and that's because sorry, I got distracted. So the reason for that is, we set aside the funds for your specific property, and we're always evaluating properties. So we need to know that we have the property locked in via an agreement to be able to continue to set those size of funds for your specific property. And then you just move on. You don't stress it. You don't dwell on it. It's just a question. You answer it and keep it moving. Then we're going to walk through the agreement. We're going to go section by section, and we're just going to explain it in plain language. It typically takes about 5 minutes or however long they need, but you go from section to section, explain it in plain English, and then move on to the next section. You don't ask them if they have questions, right? If they have questions, they'll speak up, and then you just get them to sign it. And there's a document that will be shared that talks. So one, there's an internal document which explains every section in depth, in detail, so you understand it as the acquisition person. But then there's also an outward facing document that explains how to walk through it with them and just paraphrase this section by section. And it talks about it here, but you want to sound like you've done this 100 times, right? This is just another day in the office for you. So how do we handle stalls at contract? Right? These will come up after the verbal yes, before they've signed. So it'll be like, hey, I want my attorney to review it. How do we deal with that? We're not going to, we're going to say, hey, totally understand. We'd be happy to send it to your attorney. What's a good email for them? Right? But then we also want to dig and we want to understand why they're looking to bring on an attorney. It's like, hey, we'll walk through the agreement together regardless. Like, I'll still send it to your attorney. I'd be happy to, but I just want to understand, like, do you have any questions about what we walk through, right? Because sometimes I've had people say, I want my attorney to review it just almost as a reflex. And then I talk to them, they feel comfortable. And I explain that, hey, hey, sometimes, we work with people that want attorneys, we work with people that don't. A lot of times an attorney is going to charge you somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 bucks when it's not necessary if you don't want it, but it's really up to you. So we don't want to push them away from an attorney and have them feel like, oh, something is off here. Why don't they want me to get an attorney? Because that's not the case. We have nothing to hide. We work with attorneys all the time, but we do want a signed agreement, and a lot of time attorneys can mess it up, and they need the seller to feel like they're worth whatever they're paying them, so they start making these requests and making it difficult. So ideally, we're working without an attorney, but we're happy to send it to an attorney. Next, I want my cousin to look at it. I want my brother to look at it. This is an influencer. We should already know about whoever this person is ahead of time. And this is why we ask influencers 2, 3 times during the call, but we also listen for breadcrumbs when people say we, or I spoke with an agent, or I spoke with my attorney. Like, we want to dig into that and understand. So we should never be caught off guard by an influencer. But if we are, you would ask and you would say, hey, like, I know based on what we talked about, it sounds like they'd be supportive of you moving forward, right? Or, hey, what do you think they would say? Did you talk to them about selling? How did that conversation go? What did they say? What would they say if you told them that you went and sold the property? Would they be excited for you? Would they be like, why didn't you talk to me first? And then you just dig and get a better understanding. And then sometimes I'd be like, oh, well, let me just read it over and call you back. You'd be like, hey, that sounds good. I'd be happy, for you to read it over. But what I want to do is I want to actually walk through it with you so I can just answer questions and explain in real time. And then if you need additional time, by all means. And the goal is to keep them on the phone, actually walk through and get to the point where it's them signing the agreement. And you walk through it, and then you just pretend like they never said it and be like, okay, and if everything looks good, then you just click the continue button and be like, oh, well, hold on, I said I wanted to look it over, and be like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Do you want to do you have any questions about what I went over right now? And then if they say no, be like, okay, a lot of people say they'll look it over and it's just a polite way of telling me no. Is that what's going on here? And then sometimes they truly just want some time, but you wanna if you have to let them get off the phone, you want to have a firm time to get back on the phone. Be like, how long do you think it's going to take you to review it? And be like, oh, I'm not sure. And then they're like, okay, well, when can we get back on a call? Are you available in an hour? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I'll call you. Like, those are all signs that something's not adding up, right? They're not comfortable. We didn't do a good job of explaining things, because if they were comfortable, like if you've talked to them, you negotiated with them, like they're holding out for something, and we need to understand why. And it's fine to call them out, be like, hey, I'm trying to understand here. Like, when we spoke, you mentioned if we got to your number, the 260, you'd be comfortable moving forward. We've walked through the agreements here. It seems like you don't have any questions about things. Like, is there something holding you back, or what's holding you back? And if you notice how my tone changes when I ask this question, it's not accusatory. It's like, why aren't you signing? Like, we went through everything. What the hell? It's like, hey, I'm just trying to understand, like, what is there something that's giving you pause or something that's giving you hesitation? And then they might be like, this is just a really emotional decision for me. I've really struggled with this. And you have to meet them where they are and be empathetic and be like, hey, I completely understand. Like, I work with a lot of people, and for a lot of people, it's really sentimental, and there's a lot that goes into selling a house. And I just want you to know that, we're here to guide you through each step of the way and make this process simple for you. I know you mentioned that you've been thinking about selling here for the last year, and it's been weighing on you. It's been difficult. You're dealing with, difficulty getting up and down the stairs. And, I know we talked about what's next if you are able to sell this, and how you're able to take this and go buy a condo in Florida and, finally get that vacation and that lifestyle you've always dreamed about. So what do you say we move forward here? We get the paperwork in place, and we can start that process to help you get to Florida, right? So that's how you kind of turn it around. And this is why you want to build a good rapport with them, because you want to be able to talk candidly with them. And in the same token, you also want to be able to call them out on if they're being indecisive, or if they're, kind of pulling your chain. It's like, hey, are you serious about this? Because it feels like you were, and now I'm getting a different vibe, and just trying to understand where this is coming from. All right. So next, you have just rules, right? So stay on the phone until the agreement is signed, right? Like, that's priority number one. If they say they're going to sign it, like, why won't they just sign it now? And try to talk through with them, try to understand what the issue is. We're going to send a DocuSign immediately while they're on the phone, and then we're going to walk through it with them. Walk each section in plain language, not legalese. You're not going to read off. You're just going to paraphrase. And again, I tell them it takes 5 minutes or however long you need. And then if they talk about the 24 policy or, hey, can I take a week to get this done? You want to frame that 24-hour policy as both real and like protective of them and us, right? We can't just say we're going to commit to having 250 and then you take 4 or 5 days and then you tell us like, oh, I'm not interested, when we could have went and bought another property. With attorney and influencer requests, like attorney, you want to send the agreement directly to them, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, I don't even have an attorney. It's like, okay, well, like there's ways around that. Be like, what if we put a clause that allows you to get an attorney to review this, right? But a lot of times they just feel like they should have an attorney and don't necessarily need one. And then the handoff is actually part of the close, right? So we want to make sure that we let them know what the next steps are, that our transaction coordinator is going to be in touch, some documentation that they're going to need, and then going from there. So on the flip side of that, fatal mistakes, getting off the phone before they sign. If there's one thing I can get across is like, you don't have a deal until you have a signed contract. So like if they verbally accept, if they say, hey, I'm going to sign, but then they don't, you don't have shit. So we have to get the signed contract from them. Don't send a DocuSign and say, hey, take your time. You get as much time as you need. That's not the case. Fumbling through the contract kills confidence, makes them feel like you don't know what you're doing, makes them not confident to sign. So we need to be able to make sure that we go through the purchase agreement walkthrough many times before we actually do it. So when we do it, we sound natural. We sound like we've done it 1,000 times before. We want to let an attorney stall without getting their contact. We want to get the attorney's information as well, be able to send it directly to them. Treating influencer requests as a dead end. If they're telling you, hey, I want this person to talk, like I want to talk to this person, it's like, hey, why don't we have them hop on a phone? We could call them right now and go through. You mentioned you talked to them already, right? And they were on board. What would they say? And what would they say if you told them and you went back to them and said, hey, honey, I sold the house, right? If you've talked to them, they shouldn't be surprised by it. They'd probably be excited for you. And then forgetting the TC handoff. So this is how you drill it, right? We want to rep this until it's automatic. So we want to lock in the verbal. Setting the 24-hour expectation is more so if they talk about needing time, right? We want to push back on that. I don't just offer that up voluntarily as part of the process, but it's something that you kind of keep in your back pocket if they start to delay. So agreement walkthrough, read and practice and do this out loud. And this is outside of the video, but you'll have these documents as well. So read the purchase agreement explanation, this internal doc, until you can explain every section in plain language without looking at it. Next, you're going to pull up the purchase agreement walkthrough, and you're going to read those notes out loud. So this is what you're actually going to read, or not read, but this is what you're going to have in front of you with the seller. And to date, I still do this, and I still have this in front of me when I walk through the agreement with the seller. Next, just practice walking through the full agreement live as if the seller's on the phone. Time yourself. It really shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. But again, if it takes longer, it's okay. But usually that's because they have questions about things. We also want you to drill out how to handle the attorney or how to handle the influencer, right? So we're going to work on that together. And then lastly, let me read it and call you back, right? Be like, hey, I'm happy to have you read it. I could actually just stay on the phone, but I do need to walk through it with you, just because a lot of people have questions and I'm able to answer them, but I want to explain any clause. I want to explain everything in here, so just so we're on the same page, and I feel like I've done my job in getting this to you. And then you do it, and then you still try to get them to sign anyways. So that's it for closing the deal. So once you do that, you have a deal, and congratulations, and get back at it. So if you have questions, just let me know, and go from there.